Green, this is Crash Course U.S. History, and today we will be talking about the Texas Revolution, and more specifically, the 13-day siege of the Alamo. The Texas Revolution began with the Battle of Gonzales in October 1835 and ended with the Battle of San Jacinto on April 21, 1836, although there were skirmishes between Mexico and the colonists before that. The Battle of the Alamo took place from February 23rd through March 6, 1836. It was a pivotal event in the Texas Revolution. Mexican troops under General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna launched an assault on the Alamo near San Antonio de Bexar, killing all Texian defenders. Santa Anna's cruelty during the battle inspired many Texians, both Texas settlers and adventurers from the United States, to join the Texian army. With a desire for revenge, the Texians defeated the Mexican army at the Battle of San Jacinto on April 21, 1836, ending the revolution. Several months previously, Texians had driven all Mexican troops out of Mexican Texas. About 100 Texians were then garrisoned at the Alamo. Texian force grew slightly with the arrival of reinforcements led by eventual Alamo Pope commanders James Bowie and William B. Travis. On February 23rd, approximately 1,500 Mexicans marched into San Antonio de Bexar as the first step in a campaign to retake Texas. For the next 10 days, the two armies engaged in several skirmishes with minimal casualties. Aware that his garrison could not withstand an attack by such a large force, Travis wrote multiple letters pleading for more men and supplies, but the Texians were reinforced by fewer than 100 men. In the early morning hours of March 6th, the Mexican army advanced on the Alamo. After repelling two attacks, the Texians were unable to fend off a third attack. As Mexican soldiers scaled the walls, most of the Texian soldiers withdrew into interior buildings. Defenders unable to reach these points were slain by the Mexican cavalry as they attempted to escape. Between 5 and 7 Texians may have surrendered. If so, they were quickly executed. Most eyewitness accounts report between 182 and 257 Texians died, while most historians of the Alamo agree that around 600 Mexicans were killed or wounded. Several non-combatants were sent to Gonzales to spread word of the Texian defeat. The news sparked both a strong rush to join the Texian army and a panic known as the Runaway Scrape, in which the Texian army, most settlers, and the new Republic of Texas government fled from the advancing Mexican army. Oh, it's time for the mystery document? The rules are simple. I guess the author of a mystery document. If I get it wrong, I get shocked. I do solemnly swear that I will bear true allegiance to the provisional government of Texas, or any future Republican government that hereafter may be declared, and that I will serve her honestly and faithfully against all her enemies and opposers whatsoever, and observe and obey the orders of the government of Texas, the orders and decrees of the present and future authorities, and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to the rules and regulations of the government of Texas, so help me God. Well, Stan, this sounds like a judge being sworn in, and it being in Texas, I'm going to say since the Texas Revolution happened around 1836, that this would make this John Forbes, the first judge in the municipality of Nacogdoches. Yes! Yes! Now let's talk about the people who fought after the Alamo. Houston's army at this time probably outnumbered the Mexicans, but the Texas general refused to fight for several reasons. He realized that although his army was patriotically moved, it was poorly trained. Furthermore, his enemy had artillery, and he did not. Finally, Santa Anna's plan allowed for rapid communication and quick reinforcement. Houston thought that he could not risk it, for if he lost, there would be nothing to stop Santa Anna from marching unimpeded across Texas. This last consideration became all the more important after March 2nd, the date on which the convention approved the Texas Declaration of Independence. In Houston's mind, nothing less was at stake than the independent nationhood. Nevertheless, disappointed that he did not attack, a number of his troops began to question his leadership, and a discipline problem developed that lasted all the way to San Jacinto. When Houston learned of Fannon's destruction, his withdrawal became a retreat, and he turned northward to the Brazos River and Jared Cruz's plantation. He went by way of San Felipe de Austin, which he torched. By now, Houston's disgruntled force had shrunk to no more than 800 men. Some said he wanted to retreat as far as Trinity River. Others said that he merely intended to teach his little army the fundamentals of the drill while waiting for reinforcement. In either event, Captains Wiley Martin and Mosley Baker claimed that they would fight the enemy on their own. Houston solved the problem by ordering his men and their followers to establish a rear guard to hold up a Mexican advance, but discontent came not only from the ranks but from the government. Houston was strongly criticized by President David G. Burnett as well. In the meantime, Burnett and the cabinet fled New Washington for Harrisburg. Time passed slowly at Gross's plantation, but the troops did learn about battlefield drills and formations. The weather stayed bad and disease became a problem. In these troubles, Houston's command was buttressed by two loyal supporters, Colonel Thomas J. Husk and Colonel Edward Burleson. Upon hearing of Burnett's flight, Santa Anna also decided to move on Harrisburg. Because of this error, he lost sight of his objective, Houston's army. In addition, this pursuit meant that he would be required to divide his force further. Nevertheless, Santa Anna decided on the chase and personally led the advancing force. When he arrived in Harrisburg, he discovered that the Texas government had fled again, so he ordered Colonel Juan N. Almonte ahead. Almonte nearly succeeded in capturing the escaping officials, but by now Houston was on the move again, this time to the east. At the fork between the roads in Nacogdoches and Harrisburg, the army swung toward the latter, and the character of the campaign changed. Houston and his strike toward Harrisburg resembled a forced march. On the way, he intercepted Mexican couriers from whom he learned the location and size of Santa Anna's force. Gathering his men around him, Houston eloquently addressed them and called upon them to remember the Alamo and Goliad. By now, both Houston and Santa Anna on separate roads were headed for Lynch's Ferry on the San Jacinto River, still concerned about reinforcement, for he knew that Coss would soon join his adversary. Houston crossed and then destroyed Vince's Bridge during the remainder of the campaign. The possibility of Mexican reinforcement was never far from his mind. The Texans reached Lynch's Ferry at the confluence of the San Jacinto River and Buffalo Bayou first. On the banks of both bodies of water was marshland flanked by heavy foliage, mostly live oak, spread laterally. In the tree line beside Buffalo Bayou, Houston aligned his force on April 20th. Later on the same day, Santa Anna's force, surprised by the Texan presence, also arrived. In the late afternoon, there was a brief but sharp clash between elements of the two armies, but nothing serious developed. Apparently, Santa Anna decided to wait reinforcements, which arrived the following morning in the form of Coss's command. Meanwhile, Houston held his first council of war, wherein the merits of an offensive or defensive battle were debated. On the afternoon of April 21st, Houston ordered his small force of perhaps 900 men forward. Santa Anna's army, numbering somewhere around 1,300 men, was resting. Santa Anna had concluded that the Texans were on the defensive, and he had decided to attack them the next day. Because of this costly miscalculation, Houston surprised and completely overran the enemy. The battle took only 18 minutes. Shouts of "Remember the Alamo" and "Remember Goliad" filled the air, and in this charged atmosphere, the killing continued for an hour after the issue was resolved. Virtually the entire Mexican army was killed, scattered, or captured, including Santa Anna, who managed to escape but was captured the following day. In effect, the Mexicans lost everything, and the Texans, by comparison, lost only 9 men. On Houston's command, Santa Anna ordered his second-in-command, General Vicente Filsola, to withdraw all his troops from Texas, and the order was obeyed. If the Mexican army had remained in Texas, the war probably would have continued. Many Texans wanted Santa Anna's life, but Houston, aware of his bounty, spared him. The war was concluded by the two treaties of Velasco, one public, the other one secret. The first was published as soon as possible, and its contents held conditions very favorable to Texas. By its terms, Texas independence was recognized, hostilities were ended, the Mexican army was retired beyond the Rio Grande, confiscated property would be restored, and prisoners would be exchanged. The secret treaty agreed to Santa Anna's release in exchange for his promise that he would do all he could to secure within the Mexican government all the provisions of the public treaty without exception, as well as the enforcement of them. Santa Anna agreed, as was his perceived prerogative, since by destroying the Constitution of 1824 he had assumed authority over Mexican foreign policy. The remaining Mexican government refused to accept these terms, however. Nevertheless, Texas became not only a de facto state, but a de jure state in the eyes of many nations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. As we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.